The words left my mouth before I could pull them back. "Sweetheart, this isn't a high school shop class. Go find whoever's supposed to be supervising you." She stood there in the maintenance bay, grease already on her hands, holding a diagnostic tablet I'd left on the workbench. The August heat made the corrugated metal roof tick and expand above us. Outside, the Texas sun hammered down on Fort Hood's vehicle depot with the kind of merciless intensity that turned asphalt soft and made tempers shorter. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, that was the name on my uniform, though most people just called me Webb. 15 years I'd been working on armored vehicles, 15 years of hydraulic fluid under my fingernails, transmission codes memorized, the particular sound a bearing makes 3 days before it fails. I'd deployed twice to Iraq, once to Afghanistan. I'd kept Bradleys running through sandstorms that stripped paint off metal, kept Humvees moving when mechanics half my age said it couldn't be done. I didn't need help, especially not from her. She was maybe 26, 27. Dark hair pulled back tight, no makeup, wearing contractor coveralls that looked too new. The name patch said K. Martinez, no rank, civilian contractor then. Some defense company had sent her, probably fresh out of a corporate training program, probably never touched real equipment in field conditions. "I was told to report to the M1A2 maintenance section," she said. Her voice was level, professional. No Texas accent, somewhere from the Northeast maybe. "The tank with the recurring transmission fault," I laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "That's what they told you, the recurring transmission fault." I shook my head, turning back to the parts I'd been cataloguing. "Lady, that Abrams has been down for 6 weeks. We've had 3 different teams look at it. Replaced the entire transmission assembly twice. Runs for maybe 4 hours, then the same fault code. You know what a fault code is?" "Yes. We've got a brigade rotation coming up in 11 days. That tank needs to be operational, or it doesn't go. And if it doesn't go, we're short 1 vehicle in the company. You understand what that means. What it means to send soldiers into a training exercise undermanned because some contractor thinks she can fix what actual Army mechanics couldn't." She set the tablet down carefully. "I understand the pressure you're under, Sergeant. I'm here to help, not to get in your way." "Help." I turned the word over in my mouth like it tasted bad. You know how many times I've heard that. How many times some contractor shows up with a laptop and a manual and thinks they understand machines that I've been maintaining since before they graduated college. Something shifted in her expression, not anger, something colder, more controlled. "I graduated from MIT in 2019, she said quietly. "Mechanical engineering. I've worked on the Abrams platform, specifically for 3 years at General Dynamics. The transmission issue you're describing, intermittent failure after thermal cycling. I've seen it twice before. Both times it wasn't the transmission." I felt heat crawl up my neck, not from the August temperature. "MIT," I said. "Well, congratulations on your degree. I'm sure it looks real nice on your wall. But this is a motor pool, not a laboratory. We don't have time for theoretical approaches. We need that tank running." "Then let me look at it." "I don't think so." The silence stretched between us. Somewhere outside, someone was running a pressure washer. The rhythmic blast of water against metal echoed through the depot. "Sergeant Webb." Her voice was different now, harder. "I was contracted specifically for this problem by your battalion maintenance officer. If you want to refuse my assistance, that's your right, but you'll need to take it up with Major Hendricks." She was right, and I hated that she was right. Hendricks had mentioned something about a contractor coming in. "Specialist from the manufacturer," he'd said. "Give her whatever she needs." I'd assumed it would be some older guy, someone with field experience, someone who looked like they belonged in a maintenance bay. Not her. "Fine," I said. "Take a look. But I'm telling you right now, we've tried everything. New transmission, new torque converter, flushed every line, checked every sensor. The problem's in the core system somewhere, something that would require a complete teardown, which we don't have time for. "I'll need the maintenance logs," she said. "All of them. Every repair attempt, every diagnostic reading, every time that tank's been worked on in the last 6 months." I gestured toward the computer terminal in the corner. "Help yourself." She walked past me, her movements efficient and purposeful. As she passed, I caught a smell, not perfume, but something clean like soap and fresh laundry. It reminded me, uncomfortably, that I'd been working since 0600 and probably smelled like a combination of motor oil and sweat. I went back to my inventory, but I wasn't really counting parts anymore. I was watching her from the corner of my eye. She'd pulled up the digital logs and was scrolling through them fast. Her eyes moving with the kind of focus I recognized from myself when I was deep in a problem. Private Rodriguez came in, carrying a replacement fuel filter. "Sergeant, Oh, who's that?" "Contractor," I said shortly. "For the Abrams, apparently." Rodriguez was 22, from El Paso, eager and competent, but still learning. He lowered his voice. "She know what she's doing." "Says she does, we'll see." But even as I said it, something nagged at me, the way she'd mentioned MIT so matter-of-factly, not bragging but just stating a fact. The way she'd mentioned General Dynamics. The way she'd known immediately what I was talking about when I described the fault pattern. I pushed the thought away. The maintenance bay was my domain. I'd earned it through years of work, through deployments, where I'd kept vehicles running in conditions that would make these corporate engineers quit in a week. I didn't need someone from MIT to tell me how to fix a tank, even if we couldn't fix it ourselves, even if time was running out. She spent 2 hours on those logs, not moving from the terminal except once to grab a bottle of water from the cooler. I tried to focus on other work. There were always a dozen other vehicles that needed attention, but I found myself glancing over. She was making notes on a small pad, writing quick annotations that I couldn't read from this distance. Finally, she stood up and walked over to where I was replacing brake pads on a Humvee. "I need to see the tank," she said. "It's in Bay 7. "Will you show me?" It wasn't really a question. I wiped my hands on a rag and led her through the depot. The Abrams sat alone in the corner bay, 68 tons of disabled war machine. Someone had stenciled "Deadline" across the front glacis plate in chalk, military shorthand for equipment that's non-operational. She walked around it slowly, running her hand along the track, examining the road wheels, looking underneath at the suspension. When she got to the engine deck, she stopped. "When was the last time you opened the hull?" "We don't open the hull for transmission problems. The transmission's accessible from the rear." "I'm not talking about the transmission, I'm talking about the hull. Specifically, the fire suppression system lines that run along the interior bulkhead." I stared at her. "The fire suppression system has nothing to do with transmission function." "Not directly, but if there's a leak in the halon lines near the transmission temperature sensors, it could be creating false readings. The system would think it's overheating when it's not, and shut down to prevent damage that isn't actually happening." I'd never heard of anything like that. In 15 years, from anyone. I started, then stopped. "That's a pretty specific theory." "I saw it happen once in testing. Different tank, same symptoms. Everyone thought it was the transmission because that's what the code said. Turned out to be a pinhole leak in a fire suppression line that was cooled by the same airflow as the sensor. Made the sensor read cold even when the transmission was hot, so the computer overcorrected." She looked at me directly for the first time. Her eyes were brown, intelligent, and completely devoid of judgment. "It's a long shot," she admitted. "But it fits the pattern in your logs. The fault only happens after the tank's been running long enough for the cabin to heat up significantly. That's when the temperature differential would be most pronounced." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that we'd checked everything, that it couldn't be something that simple after all this time. But I couldn't, because what she was saying made a terrible kind of sense. "It'll take hours to access those lines," I said. "We'd need to pull half the interior panels." "I know. But it's faster than replacing the transmission again." The afternoon sun was starting to slant through the bay doors. My shift was supposed to end at 1700, but I rarely left on time. Neither did Rodriguez or the other mechanics, not with the rotation coming up. "All right," I said, "we'll check it tomorrow morning, first thing. I'd like to start now." "Now? It's almost 1600. "I'm aware of the time, but if I'm right, we could have this tank running by tomorrow evening. If I'm wrong, we've only lost a few hours." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. There was no smugness in her expression. No "I told you so" waiting to happen. Just the same focused determination I saw in my own people when they were committed to solving a problem. "You know how to pull a panel pack on an Abrams?" I asked. "I've done it in the factory, never in field conditions." "It's louder and dirtier," I said. "And you'll need help. These panels are heavy." "Will you help me?" The question hung there. An olive branch, maybe, or a test. "Yeah," I said finally. "I'll help you." I didn't apologize for calling her sweetheart, didn't acknowledge the insult from earlier, but as we gathered tools and Rodriguez came over to see what we were doing, I made sure to use her name when I introduced them. "Rodriguez, this is Ms. Martinez. We're going to pull the interior panel pack on the Abrams. Get the impact wrench and the panel jack." She glanced at me when I said her name, a quick look I couldn't quite read. We worked as the afternoon faded into evening. The temperature in the bay didn't drop. If anything, it got worse as the metal walls radiated back the heat they'd absorbed all day. Martinez didn't complain. She worked methodically, asking questions when she needed to, taking direction when it made sense, offering suggestions when she saw a better approach. She was good. I didn't want to admit it, but she was good. By 1900 hours, we had 3 panels removed and could see the fire suppression lines running along the bulkhead. They were inspection-coated yellow, thick as a thumb, pressurized with halon gas. Martinez leaned in with a flashlight, examining each connection point, each weld, each section of line. "There," she said. I looked where she was pointing. At first, I didn't see anything. Then she shifted the light and I caught it, the smallest discoloration on the line surface, right where it passed within inches of a temperature sensor bundle. "Could be nothing," I said. "Could be a manufacturing mark." "Could be," she agreed. "Hand me the leak detector." I retrieved the ultrasonic leak detector from the tool cart. She powered it on, adjusted the sensitivity, and held the probe near the discolored spot. The detector screamed. Leak, tiny, almost invisible, but there. Gas escaping at pressure, cooling the area around it, creating exactly the kind of temperature differential she'd described. "Son of a bitch," I said quietly. Martinez didn't gloat. She just nodded, already thinking ahead. "We'll need a replacement section. About 6 inches. Do you have spare line?" "We have line, but we'll need to depressurize the whole system to replace it. That's a 2-day job minimum, and we need certification from safety to repressurize." "Or," she said, "we could install a patch sleeve. It's approved for field repairs, good for the pressure rating. I can have one here by tomorrow morning." "You just happen to have access to patch sleeves?" "General Dynamics ships them to every contract site. They're in my equipment case." Of course they were. I looked at the leak again, at the tanks around us, at the deadline stencil on the hull. Then I looked at Martinez, still holding the leak detector, grease on her forearms, hair starting to come loose from where she'd tied it back. "All right," I said, "we'll patch it tomorrow. If it works, it'll work." She said it with such absolute certainty that I almost believed her. We secured the panels loosely for the night and cleaned up the workspace. Rodriguez had left an hour ago. The depot was mostly empty now, just the security lights and the distant sound of someone's radio playing country music. "You need a ride back to wherever you're staying?" I asked. "I have a rental car, but thank you." We walked together toward the parking area. The Texas night had finally brought some relief from the heat, a slight breeze carrying the smell of cut grass from the parade ground. "Martinez," I said as we reached her car, a compact sedan that looked completely out of place among the trucks and tactical vehicles. "I was out of line earlier. What I said when you came in." She turned to face me. "Yes, you were. No softening it. No, it's okay, or don't worry about it. Just the truth." "It won't happen again," I said. "Good." She unlocked her car. "I'll see you at 0700. We'll get your tank running, Sergeant Webb." She drove away, taillights disappearing into the darkness beyond the depot gates. I stood there for a moment, keys in my hand, thinking about the leak we'd found, about the 3 teams who'd missed it, about my assumption that she couldn't help, about the word sweetheart and how easily it had come out. I'd spent 15 years building a reputation in this depot, 15 years being the guy who could fix anything, who didn't need help from anyone, who understood these machines better than anyone else. But I'd missed that leak. We all had. And she'd found it in less than 8 hours. I got in my truck and drove home through the empty Texas night, the taste of being wrong still bitter in my mouth. The patch sleeve arrived at 0645, delivered by a courier who looked confused about why anyone would need industrial parts before 0700. Martinez had it installed by 0830, her hands moving with practiced precision as she sealed and torqued the sleeve to specification. I'd come in early, told myself it was because I always came in early, but really I wanted to see if she'd show up, wanted to see if yesterday had been real or if I'd imagined her competence. She was already there when I arrived, drinking coffee from a thermos and reviewing the system pressurization checklist. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Morning." We worked mostly in silence. Rodriguez showed up at 0700 with Private Chen, and I put them on other tasks. This was between Martinez and me now. Not a competition exactly, but something that needed to be settled. Whether the patch would hold, whether her theory was right, whether I'd have to admit that a contractor with a fancy degree had solved a problem my team couldn't. By 1100 hours, we'd reassembled everything, repressurized the system, and run the diagnostic checks. Everything showed green. The tank was ready to fire up. "You want to do the honors?" I asked. Martinez shook her head. "Your tank, Sergeant. You start it." I climbed into the driver's position, the familiar smell of the interior surrounding me. Metal, hydraulics, the faint ozone smell of electronics. The seat had been adjusted for someone taller. I reset it and went through the startup sequence. The turbine engine came to life with its characteristic whine, building to a roar. I watched the instruments. Temperature readings normal, pressure normal, transmission engaged smoothly. I ran it for 15 minutes, then 30, then an hour, putting it through the full diagnostic protocol. High idle, low idle transmission cycles, full power. No fault codes, no shutdowns, nothing. When I finally powered down and climbed out, Martinez was sitting on a parts crate, making notes in her pad. She looked up when I approached. "Well?" she asked. "It's running," I said. "Clean. Good." She went back to her notes. I stood there, uncertain. This was the moment where I should say something, acknowledge what she'd done, but the words stuck in my throat. "Rodriguez did it for me." "Holy shit, Ms. Martinez, you actually fixed it." She smiled at him, a quick flash of warmth that transformed her face. "We fixed it. Sergeant Webb did most of the reinstallation work." "After you found the problem," I said. "After we found the problem," she corrected. "You're the one who knew where to look once we identified the system." It was generous, and we both knew it wasn't quite true. But I appreciated the gesture. "Battalion maintenance officer wants to see me at 1300, I said. "Going to want a full report on the repair. You should be there." Will he listen to a contractor? Major Hendricks listens to anyone who gets results. Trust me, he's going to want to know how you found something 3 teams missed. The meeting was exactly as awkward as I'd anticipated. Hendricks sat behind his desk, a broad-shouldered man in his late 40s who'd come up through the ranks and had exactly 0 patience for excuses. 6 weeks, he said, looking at the repair report. 6 weeks this tank was down. We brought in specialized teams, we burned through authorized repair budget and then some, and you're telling me it was a pinhole leak in the fire suppression system. Yes, sir, I said. He looked at Martinez. How'd you find it? Pattern analysis in the maintenance logs, sir. The fault only occurred after extended operation, and only when the vehicle had been exposed to high ambient temperatures for several hours before starting. That suggested an environmental trigger rather than a mechanical failure. Fire suppression systems are often overlooked because they're separate from drive systems, but they run parallel to several critical sensor bundles. Hendricks grunted. You're saying we should have found this ourselves? I'm saying it was easy to miss, sir. The leak was very small. Without the right diagnostic equipment at the right time, you'd never see it. But you saw it. I'd encountered a similar issue before. I knew what to look for. Hendricks turned to me. Webb, honest assessment. Could your team have found this without her? The question landed like a punch. I could lie, protect my pride, claim we would have gotten there eventually, but Hendricks would know, and Martinez was sitting right there. No, sir, I said, not in the time we had available. Maybe if we'd had another month and happened to be looking in exactly the right place, but probably not even then. The admission felt like swallowing broken glass. Hendricks nodded slowly. General Dynamics sent you specifically for this problem. Yes, sir. I work with a rapid response team. We handle persistent faults on Abrams platforms across multiple installations. How many other bases have you done this for? This is my 8th assignment this year, and they're all problems the regular maintenance crews couldn't solve. Usually, sir. Sometimes I arrive and the crew has already figured it out. Other times, she glanced at me, other times it takes collaboration. Hendricks leaned back in his chair. Here's my problem. I've got a motor pool of experienced mechanics who've been maintaining armored vehicles for years. Combined, this depot has over 200 years of experience, and we needed a contractor to solve a problem we couldn't crack in 6 weeks. That bothers me. It should bother you, sir, Martinez said, but not because your mechanics are incompetent. The Abrams is incredibly complex. There are systems interactions that aren't well documented, failure modes that only show up under specific conditions. The fact that your team replaced the transmission twice shows they were following proper diagnostic protocol. They just didn't have the specific experience with this particular failure. And you did. I did, because General Dynamics has data from every Abrams in service. When a problem shows up at one base, we document it. When it shows up at another, we start to see patterns. Your mechanics are excellent at what they do. They just don't have access to the same aggregate data. It was a diplomatic way of saying we were limited by our scope. That experience on one base, even extensive experience, couldn't match the overview she had from working across the entire fleet. Hendricks looked at me. That sound right to you, Webb? Yes, sir. All right. He stood, which meant the meeting was over. Tanks operational? Yes, sir. Ran for over an hour with no faults. Good. We'll run it through the full pre-deployment checklist tomorrow. If it holds up, it goes with the rotation. He turned to Martinez. You sticking around? I was planning to leave tonight, sir. I have another assignment at Fort Benning on Thursday. Hold off until we run the full checks. If something else shows up, I want you here. Yes, sir. We filed out of his office. In the hallway, Martinez stopped and checked her phone. I need to call my company, she said. Let them know I'm staying another day. Is there somewhere I can? Break rooms down the hall. Should be empty now. She nodded. and walked away. I stood there, watching her go, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours settling on my shoulders. Rodriguez found me 10 minutes later. "Sergeant Chen and I are going to grab lunch. You want anything?" "I'm good." "You sure? You've been looking kind of—" He made a vague gesture. "I don't know, pissed off." "I'm not pissed off." "Okay." Frustrated. I sighed. "What do you want me to say, Rodriguez? That it bothers me we couldn't figure out the tank on our own? That some contractor had to fly in and show us up?" "She didn't show us up, Sergeant. She helped us. That's literally what she's paid to do." "I know that." "Do you? Because you've been weird ever since she got here. And that thing you said yesterday when she first showed up. Sweetheart, really. That was messed up." I looked at him sharply. "I apologized for that. To her, maybe, but I heard it. Chen heard it. Half the depot probably heard it. And now everyone's talking about how Staff Sergeant Webb had to eat crow because a lady contractor fixed his tank." The words hit harder than they should have. "That's what they're saying?" "Not exactly like that, but yeah, some of it." Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I get it. You've been here forever. You know everything about these vehicles. It's got to sting that she found something you missed." "It's not about her finding it," I said, though maybe it was. "It's about, I don't know, standards, protocols, the way things are supposed to work. Or maybe it's about her being a woman," Rodriguez said quietly. I stared at him. Rodriguez had never pushed back at me like this before. He was a good kid, respectful, followed orders. But now he was looking at me with something that might have been disappointment. "You think that's what this is?" I asked. "I think you called her sweetheart before you knew her name. I think you assumed she didn't belong here before she'd even done anything. And I think if some guy from General Dynamics had showed up and found that leak, you'd be buying him beers right now instead of standing here looking like someone died." "That's not—" But I couldn't finish the sentence. Because maybe it was true. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. Enough of it. Rodriguez waited, giving me space to say something. When I didn't, he shook his head. "I'm going to lunch. Let me know if you need anything." He left me standing in the hallway, his words echoing in my head. I went back to the maintenance bay and tried to focus on work. There was always work. A Bradley with a coolant leak, a Humvee that needed brake drums, routine maintenance schedules, reports to file, the normal rhythm of the motor pool. But I couldn't concentrate. Around 1500, Martinez came back to the bay. She'd changed clothes, still practical. Still contractor casual, but different coveralls, cleaner. "I'm going to run some final diagnostics on the Abrams," she said. "Make sure the patch is holding under temperature cycling." "Need help?" "I can handle it. But thank you." She worked alone for the next 2 hours. I watched her from across the bay, trying not to be obvious about it. She moved with confidence, checking readings, making notes, occasionally stopping to just listen to the tank's engine, the way experienced mechanics do, reading the machine's health through sound and vibration. The way I did. At 1700, she shut everything down and came over to where I was finishing the Humvee work. "Diagnostics look good," she said. "Patch is holding, no pressure loss, no temperature anomalies. I think you're clear for the pre-deployment checks tomorrow." "That's good news." "It is." She paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Yesterday when I first arrived, why did you assume I couldn't help?" The question was direct, no hostility in it, but no softness either. Just genuine curiosity. I could have deflected. Could have made it about contractors in general, about theory versus practice. About any number of things that didn't touch the real answer, but Rodriguez's words were still in my head. "Because you didn't look like what I expected," I said slowly, "and I made assumptions based on that. Unfair assumptions. Because I'm a woman." "Yeah, probably." She nodded like I'd confirmed something she already knew. "You know what's funny? I deal with this at almost every base I visit, some version of it. Sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's subtle. Someone always assumes I'm lost, or that I'm clerical support, or that I'm someone's girlfriend who wandered into the wrong building. That must get old. It does, but I also understand it. Military culture is traditional, especially in combat arms units. And maintenance is still mostly male. I don't take it personally anymore. I just prove myself and move on. You shouldn't have to prove yourself, I said. Not more than anyone else would. No, but that's the reality, so I deal with it. She picked up her toolkit, started organizing her equipment. For what it's worth, you're not the worst I've encountered. At Fort Riley last month, a chief warrant officer literally refused to let me touch any equipment, said women didn't belong in maintenance. I had to go through his battalion commander just to do my job. What happened? I fixed their tank, filed my report, left. He's still at Riley, as far as I know. Still probably believes women don't belong in maintenance. She looked at me. But you don't believe that, do you? No, I said. And I meant it. I don't believe that. Then what do you believe? It was a fair question. I thought about it while I wiped down my tools, while the depot around us started to empty out for the evening shift change. I believe I've been doing this job a long time, I said finally, and somewhere along the way I started thinking that meant I knew everything. That experience was the same as wisdom, that if I hadn't seen it, it probably didn't matter. That's a dangerous mindset in any field. Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. We worked in silence for a while, cleaning up our respective areas. The maintenance bay was almost peaceful in the evening light. The chaos of the day settling into the quiet routine of securing equipment and filing tools. Martinez, I said, as she was packing the last of her diagnostic equipment, if you're staying another night anyway, and if you don't have plans. Some of us usually grab dinner at this barbecue place off base, nothing fancy, but the food's good and it's a chance to decompress. You'd be welcome to join. She looked surprised. Really? Really? I mean, if you want, no pressure. Who's us? Rodriguez, Chen, a couple of other mechanics, sometimes people from other sections. It's just... I struggled to explain it. It's what we do, after a long week, a way to be people instead of ranks for a few hours. She considered it. Okay, yeah, I'd like that. We usually head out around 18:30. I can text you the address. Sounds good. She left to drop her equipment at her hotel. I finished my work, filed my reports, and tried not to think too hard about why I'd invited her. Whether it was genuine olive branch or guilt or something else. Rodriguez was skeptical when I told him. You invited her? To Smokies? Yeah, why? No reason, just... That's a pretty big turnaround from yesterday's sweetheart comment. People can change their minds, Rodriguez. Apparently. He grinned. This should be interesting. Smokies BBQ was exactly what its name suggested. A low building with smoke pouring from industrial pits out back, the smell of mesquite and roasting meat thick in the evening air. The interior was all wooden tables and Texas memorabilia, with a jukebox in the corner playing Johnny Cash. Martinez arrived at 18:45, just as we were ordering. She'd changed again, jeans and a plain t-shirt, hair down for the first time since I'd met her. She looked younger somehow, less like a contractor, and more like someone you'd run into at the grocery store. Hope you like brisket, Rodriguez said, pulling out a chair for her. Because that's pretty much all they do well here. Brisket works, she said, settling in. The meal was easier than I'd expected. Martinez had stories from her other assignments. The time a tank at Fort Carson had a family of raccoons living in the engine compartment. The warrant officer at Fort Hood, who turned out to be her father's old deployment buddy, the ongoing mystery of why Abrams tanks in desert climates developed different wear patterns than ones in temperate zones. She was funny when she relaxed, quick with self-deprecating humor, willing to laugh at the absurdities of military bureaucracy, comfortable with the banter that flew around the table. Chen started calling her Kay instead of Ms. Martinez after she told them about the time she'd accidentally locked herself inside a tank during a depot inspection. Rodriguez told the story about me accidentally backing a Humvee into a colonel's personal vehicle. The evening became the kind of easy camaraderie that good teams build over time. But underneath it, I kept thinking about what Rodriguez had said, about assumptions, about what I'd almost prevented by writing her off in those first minutes. Around 2100, people started drifting away. Early shifts tomorrow, families waiting, the normal ebb of a weeknight. Martinez and I ended up walking to the parking lot together, the Texas night warm and full of cricket sounds. "Thank you for inviting me," she said. "That was nice. Your team is good." "They are. I'm lucky to have them." "They respect you, I could tell. I try to earn it. And mostly succeed, I think." She unlocked her rental car. "But Webb, can I give you some advice?" "Sure. Don't let one bad day define how you see yourself or how you see other people. You made a mistake yesterday. You owned it. That matters. But it doesn't erase 15 years of being good at what you do." "I know, but it also doesn't excuse the mistake." "No, it doesn't. But it gives you a chance to do better going forward." She got in her car, started the engine. "I'll be at the depot at 0700 tomorrow for the final checks. After that, assuming everything's good, I'll head to my next assignment." "Benning, you said?" "Yeah. Transmission problems, ironically, but different symptoms than yours." I stepped back from her car. "Drive safe. You too, Sergeant." She pulled away, and I stood in the parking lot watching her taillights disappear down the road, thinking about second chances and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we know. When I got home that night, I sat on my porch with a beer and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Hendricks' number, then wrote a careful message. "Sir, request permission to recommend Ms. K. Martinez for battalion commendation. Her work on the M1A2 transmission issue demonstrated expertise and professionalism above expected standards. Recommend formal recognition." I hit send before I could second-guess it. 3 minutes later, Hendricks replied, "Noted, will process, good call, Webb." It wasn't much, just a formal letter she'd probably file away and forget. But it was something. An acknowledgement on record that she'd done excellent work, from the person who'd initially questioned whether she belonged there at all. It felt like the least I could do, and maybe the first step toward being better than who I'd been when she walked into my maintenance bay and I called her sweetheart like it was nothing. The pre-deployment check started at 0800. Martinez arrived on time, professional and focused, carrying a tablet with the testing protocols loaded. We ran through them systematically: transmission stress tests, thermal cycling, full diagnostic sweeps, simulated combat load scenarios. The tank performed flawlessly. By 1300, we'd completed everything on the checklist. The Abrams that had been deadline for 6 weeks was officially operational, cleared for the rotation, ready to roll out with the rest of the company in 8 days. Major Hendricks came down personally to observe the final sign-off. He watched Martinez walk him through the repair documentation, nodding at the right places, asking pointed questions that she answered without hesitation. "Outstanding work," he said finally. "Both of you. Webb, this tank goes on your maintenance record as ready. Martinez, I'm putting a note in my report to General Dynamics. You solved a problem that was costing us time and readiness. That matters." "Thank you, sir," Martinez said. "One thing, though." Hendricks pulled out a folder. "I got a call this morning from Fort Benning. They're pushing your assignment there back by 2 weeks. Some authorization delay on their end, which means you've got some open time in your schedule." Martinez frowned. "I wasn't informed of any delay. It just came through. Your company's trying to figure out where to send you next, but in the meantime," he turned to me, Webb, I'm assigning her to the depot for the next week. We've got 3 other vehicles with persistent issues. Nothing as complex as the Abrams, but problems we've been working around. Maybe a fresh set of eyes would help. I saw Martinez's expression change just slightly. Surprise, maybe. Or concern about being stuck here when she could be getting to her next assignment. If Ms. Martinez is willing, I said carefully, I'd welcome the assistance. It's not really optional, Hendricks said bluntly. We're paying General Dynamics for her time either way. Might as well put it to good use, but he looked at her. If there's a problem with the arrangement, you can take it up with your company. No problem, sir, Martinez said. I'm happy to help. After Hendricks left, Martinez and I stood in the maintenance bay, the sound of other mechanics working on nearby vehicles filling the silence between us. You don't have to be happy about it, Till I said. If Hendricks is forcing this, it's fine, Webb. Really, I've been in worse situations. Like Fort Riley? She smiled slightly. Fort Riley was educational. This is different. You're not trying to get rid of me. No, I'm not. Then we'll make it work. Show me the 3 vehicles he mentioned. I walked her through the depot, pointing out the problems. A Bradley with electrical gremlins that came and went without pattern. A Humvee that kept throwing the same engine code despite multiple attempted fixes. A support truck with hydraulic issues that defied diagnosis. Nothing critical, I explained. We've got workarounds for all of them, but they're inefficient, and they're going to become real problems eventually if we don't solve them. Martinez took notes, asked questions, occasionally stopped to examine something more closely. By 1600, she had a preliminary plan for approaching each issue. I'll need to coordinate with your mechanics, she said. Get their input on what they've already tried. I don't want to duplicate effort or step on toes. I'll set up a briefing for tomorrow morning, Zo 7:30. We'll go through everything together. Sounds good. She left shortly after, heading back to her hotel. I stayed late, catching up on paperwork, but mostly thinking about the week ahead. Rodriguez found me around 1800, still at my desk. Heard Martinez is sticking around, he said. For now, Hendricks wants her looking at some other vehicles. And you're okay with that? Why wouldn't I be? Rodriguez shrugged. I don't know. Figured you might want your bae back. No offense to her, but having a contractor around all the time can be weird. Different chain of command, different priorities. She's good at what she does, I said. If she can help us solve problems, why would I complain? Because 2 days ago you were calling her sweetheart and telling her to go find her supervisor. I set down my pen. You planning to keep bringing that up? Just saying, big turnaround. People learn, Rodriguez. I learned. Yeah? He sat on the edge of my desk. What did you learn? I thought about it. That being experienced doesn't mean being right. That assumptions are dangerous. That... I hesitated. That I've gotten comfortable in my own expertise. And comfortable is where you stop growing. Rodriguez nodded slowly. That's pretty deep for a Tuesday evening, Sergeant. Get out of here. Go home to your girlfriend. Fiancé, we got engaged last month. Congratulations. Now get out of my office before I assign you to latrine detail. He left, laughing. I went back to my paperwork, but his words stayed with me. Big turnaround. Like it was suspicious that I'd changed my mind about someone once I actually saw them work. Maybe it should be suspicious. Maybe it said something unflattering, that I needed proof of competence before I could offer basic respect. Or maybe, and this was harder to admit, maybe I'd been so threatened by the idea of someone knowing more than me that I'd rejected her before she could prove me wrong. The next morning's briefing went better than expected. I'd worried there might be resistance from the team, territorial instincts about an outsider evaluating their work. But Martinez handled it perfectly. I'm not here to critique what you've done, she said, standing in front of the whiteboard where we'd mapped out the 3 problem vehicles. I'm here because I have access to data and resources you don't. That's not a reflection on your skills. It's just how the system works. General Dynamics sees problems from across the entire military fleet. Sometimes that broader perspective helps identify patterns. Chen asked a good question. So if you find something we missed, is that going to reflect badly on us? No. Finding solutions reflects well on everyone. The goal is operational readiness, not assigning blame. Rodriguez chimed in. What if we disagree with your approach? Then we discuss it. I'm not here to dictate. I'm here to collaborate. She looked around the room. You all know these vehicles better than I do. You know their quirks, their history, how they've been maintained. That institutional knowledge is invaluable. What I bring is pattern recognition from similar problems elsewhere. Together, we're more effective than either of us would be alone. It was exactly the right thing to say. I saw shoulders relax, saw the defensive postures ease. Martinez had a gift for reading rooms, for finding the approach that would build bridges instead of walls. We spent the next 3 days working through the vehicles systematically. The Bradley's electrical problems turned out to be a grounding issue so subtle that it only manifested under specific combinations of equipment being powered up simultaneously. Martinez had seen it twice before at other installations. The Humvee engine code was more complex, a sensor calibration drift that occurred slowly over time, too gradual to trigger normal maintenance flags, but eventually significant enough to throw false readings. Martinez helped us develop a new calibration protocol that would catch it earlier. The hydraulic truck was still a mystery by day 3. We'd eliminated half a dozen possible causes, but the problem persisted. Martinez spent hours with the technical manuals, cross-referencing with similar systems on other vehicle types. I found her in the bay at 2100 on Thursday, long after everyone else had gone home, sitting on the floor with manuals spread around her and the truck's hydraulic schematic pulled up on her tablet. You're going to strain your eyes in this light, I said. She looked up, startled. I didn't hear you come in. I'm stealthy when I want to be. I sat down on a parts crate. Find anything? Maybe. There's a pressure regulator valve in this system that's different from standard military spec. It's a commercial part, probably subbed in during a depot rebuild. The response curve is slightly different, which could explain why it's behaving erratically. Indeed, we checked the pressure regulator. You checked that it was functioning, but did you check that it was the right spec for the system? I hadn't. Neither had anyone else. If you're right, I said slowly, we'd need to source a proper military spec valve. That could take weeks. Or I could have one shipped from General Dynamics. We keep common parts in regional distribution. Could be here in 2 days. You can just do that. It's part of my job. Rapid response includes rapid parts acquisition. She made a note on her tablet. I'll submit the request tomorrow. If I'm wrong, we're out the shipping cost. If I'm right, you get a functional truck. I watched her work, the precise way she documented everything, the thoroughness of her approach. You're good at this. Thank you. No, I mean, you're really good at this. The way you think through problems, the way you communicate with the team, the way you don't get frustrated when something doesn't make sense right away. That's not just technical skill, that's something else. She set down her tablet. Are you okay, Webb? You seem, I don't know, reflective. I've been thinking about what you said at Smokey's, about not letting one bad day define things. And I think maybe it wasn't just one bad day. I think it was a pattern I hadn't noticed. The way I talked to contractors. The way I talked about them when they weren't around. Little comments, small dismissals. Nothing I thought was a big deal at the time. But now you see it differently. Yeah, now I see it differently. I picked at a loose thread on my uniform sleeve. Rodriguez got engaged. Martinez looked confused by the change of subject. That's nice. He's 22, been in the army for 3 years, and he had the awareness to call me out on my behavior when I couldn't see it myself. That bothers me. That someone half my age, with a fraction of my experience, had to explain basic decency to me. Growth is uncomfortable, Martinez said quietly. That's how you know it's real. Is that from a fortune cookie? She laughed. No, from my mother. She used to say it whenever I complained about school being hard or jobs being challenging. If it's comfortable, you're not growing, Kaylee. Growth is uncomfortable. Kaylee, that's what the K stands for. Yes, but I go by Martinez professionally. Keeps things simpler. Why? Because Kaylee sounds young, feminine, informal. Martinez sounds like someone who knows what they're doing. She shrugged. It's a small thing, but small things add up, especially in male-dominated fields. I thought about that. About all the small calculations she had to make that I never did. What to wear, what to call herself, how to present her credentials, how to respond to dismissive comments without seeming aggressive or oversensitive. That must be exhausting, I said. Sometimes, but it's worth it. I love this work. I love solving problems, understanding systems, making things work. I'm not going to let anyone else's assumptions stop me from doing what I love. Good, you shouldn't. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the depot settling into its nighttime quiet around us. Webb, Martinez said eventually, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why'd you stay in? 15 years is a long career, but you could have gotten out, gone private sector, made more money, had more freedom. Why stick with military maintenance? I'd never really articulated it before, because here, what I do matters. Every vehicle I fix could be the difference between someone coming home or not. That Bradley, that Humvee, that tank, they're not just equipment, they're protection, life support, tools that soldiers depend on. When I do my job well, people are safer. That matters more than money. That's a good answer. What about you? Why General Dynamics? Why not a different field entirely? Because I grew up around this. My father was Army, Maintenance Corps. Different era, different equipment, but the same core mission. I remember visiting him at work when I was a kid, seeing the motor pools, watching mechanics work together to solve impossible problems. It looked like magic to me. I wanted to be part of that magic. Is your father still? He died 6 years ago. Heart attack. He was only 52. I'm sorry. Thank you. He never got to see me work on Abrams tanks, but I think he would have been proud. She stood up, started gathering her manuals. I should go. Long day tomorrow. Martinez, Kaylee. I stood too. For what it's worth, I think your father would be proud. What you do, how you do it. The way you handle yourself in difficult situations. That's worth being proud of. She smiled, and there was sadness in it, but also warmth. Thank you, Webb. That means a lot. We walked out together, secured the bay, headed to our vehicles. The Texas night was clear, stars bright overhead, the air finally cool enough to be pleasant. See you tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. I drove home thinking about fathers and daughters, about legacies and pride, about the ways we carry people with us even after they're gone, and about how close I'd come to missing all of this because I'd made assumptions about who belonged in my maintenance bay. The hydraulic valve arrived on Saturday. Military spec, exact replacement, shipped priority from General Dynamics' Dallas Distribution Center. Martinez and I installed it together, running the system through full pressure tests. The truck performed perfectly. 3 for 3, Rodriguez said, watching the diagnostic readings. She's batting 1,000. We're batting 1,000, Martinez corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without your team's groundwork and institutional knowledge. But Rodriguez wasn't wrong. She was 3 for 3. Every problem she'd looked at, she'd solved. And she'd done it while making my team better in the process. That evening, Hendricks called me to his office. The contractor's assignment ends Monday, he said. She'll head to Benning unless we have justification to keep her longer. Do we? We have other vehicles with minor issues, sir, but nothing that requires her level of expertise. That's what I thought, so she goes Monday. Hendricks leaned back in his chair. Your honest assessment, Webb. Was having her here worth the cost? Absolutely, sir. Even though it meant admitting your team couldn't solve these problems alone? Especially because of that, sir. We learned from her. Not just technical skills, but approach, methodology. That knowledge stays with us after she leaves. Hendricks nodded. Good, that's what I wanted to hear. Because I'm recommending to the battalion commander that we establish a standing contract with General Dynamics for quarterly consulting visits. Not full-time assignment, but regular access to their expertise. What do you think? I think that would significantly improve our operational readiness, sir. Even if it means more contractors in your bay? Sir, if they're as competent as Martinez, I'll welcome them. Hendricks smiled slightly. That's real growth, Webb. A week ago, I'm not sure you'd have said that. A week ago, I was wrong about a lot of things, sir. We all were. That's why we learn. He pulled out another folder. One more thing. Your recommendation for battalion commendation for Martinez. I processed it. She'll receive formal recognition for her work here. But I added something. An invitation to present at our quarterly maintenance symposium, share what she learned, how she approaches persistent faults, if she's willing. I think she would be, sir. Good. Ask her. If she says yes, we'll schedule it. Hendricks stood, ending the meeting. You did good work this week, Webb, both technically and professionally. Keep it up. I found Martinez in the bay, doing final documentation on the hydraulic truck repair. She looked tired but satisfied, the kind of exhaustion that comes from good work completed. Got a minute? I asked. Sure. What's up? I told her about Hendricks' proposal, both the symposium and the quarterly consulting contract. Wow, she said when I finished. That's significant. General Dynamics would love a standing contract with Fort Hood, and the symposium sounds interesting. I've never done anything like that before. You'd be good at it. You're clear when you explain things, patient with questions. The mechanics respect you. Do they, or do they respect the results? Both. But the respect for you, personally, that's real. I've seen how they interact with other contractors. It's different with you. She was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I first got here, when you called me sweetheart, I almost left. Just packed up and called my supervisor and said I couldn't work with your team. I've done it before, at bases where the hostility was too much to overcome. Either words hit like a physical blow. But you didn't. No, because something in your voice when you apologized later, it sounded genuine, like you actually heard yourself and didn't like what you heard. That's rare. Usually people double down, get defensive. You didn't, so I decided to give it a chance. I'm glad you did. Me too. This week has been... She searched for words. It's been really good. Working with your team, solving real problems, feeling like part of something instead of an outsider, fixing things and leaving. That doesn't happen often in my job. What if it could happen more often? The quarterly contract Hendricks mentioned. You could be the assigned consultant. Regular visits, continuity. Building relationships over time instead of always being the new person. I'd have to talk to my company, see if they'd structure my schedule that way. But if they would you want it? She looked around the bay, at the vehicles we'd repaired, at the tools organized the way she'd suggested, at the workspace that had become collaborative instead of territorial. Yeah, she said, I would want it. We finished the documentation together, filed the final reports, secured the bay for the weekend. Tomorrow was Sunday, her last full day before leaving Monday morning. The depot would be quiet, skeleton crew only, most people off enjoying their weekend. What are you doing tomorrow? I asked as we walked to the parking lot. Probably working. I have reports to write for my company, documentation to compile. Why? Because you should take a day off. You've been going hard all week. You deserve some downtime. I could say the same to you. Yeah, you could, which is why I'm suggesting we both take tomorrow off. Do something that's not work-related. Have you seen any of Texas besides this base and Smokey's BBQ? Not really. Then let me show you something worth seeing, if you're interested. She studied me for a moment, and I couldn't quite read her expression. What did you have in mind? It's a surprise. But bring comfortable shoes and sunscreen. I'll pick you up at your hotel at 0900. Webb, it's not a date, I said quickly. Just one person showing another person something cool. As a thank you for the week, nothing weird. She smiled. Okay, 0900, don't be late. I wasn't late. I pulled up to her hotel at 0855, driving my personal truck instead of anything military. Martinez came out wearing jeans and a t-shirt, sunglasses, hair in a ponytail. Where are we going? She asked as she got in. Hill country, about an hour's drive, trust me. We drove west, leaving the base and the town behind, heading into the rolling hills and limestone country that defined central Texas. I'd put together a playlist, country and blues and some classic rock, nothing too aggressive, and we talked easily as the miles passed. About music, about places we'd lived, about favorite foods and terrible movies and the weird quirks of military life. Surface-level stuff, but comfortable. The kind of conversation where you're learning someone's contours without forcing depth. I pulled off the main highway onto a smaller road, then onto a dirt track that wound through cedar and oak trees. Martinez looked skeptical. Are you taking me somewhere to murder me? Because I should mention, my company knows exactly where I am. Relax, we're almost there. The track opened into a clearing overlooking a valley. Below us, a river curved through limestone bluffs, the water impossibly blue-green in the morning sun. Cypress trees lined the banks. A few people were visible in the distance, swimming in natural pools. Welcome to Hamilton Pool, I said. It's a collapsed grotto. The ceiling caved in thousands of years ago, created this natural swimming hole. Tourist spot, but early on Sunday mornings it's usually pretty quiet. Martinez got out of the truck, walked to the edge of the overlook, and just stared. Wow, this is beautiful. Thought you might like it. Come on, there's a trail down. We hiked down to the grotto itself, the temperature dropping as we descended into the shade of the collapsed cave. The pool was about 50 feet across, surrounded by limestone walls with water trickling down them. Overhead, the opening showed blue sky and the tops of trees. There were maybe a dozen other people scattered around, families, couples, a few solo hikers. Quiet voices, respectful of the space. Martinez sat on a flat rock near the water's edge, took off her shoes, and dipped her feet in. It's cold. It's spring-fed, stays about 65 degrees year-round. People swim in this? In summer, yeah. It's the best way to beat the heat. I sat next to her, close enough to talk easily, but not crowding her space. I used to come here a lot when I first got stationed at Hood, before I got too wrapped up in work to remember there was a world outside the base. When did you stop coming? Few years ago. Started feeling like I didn't have time for this kind of thing. Like it was frivolous when there was always work to do. And now? Now I think maybe I had it backwards. Maybe this is what gives the work meaning, having something beyond it. Something that reminds you why you do what you do. Martinez trailed her fingers through the water, watching the ripples spread. I haven't taken a real day off in 8 months. There's always another assignment, another problem, another deadline. I tell myself I love the work, and I do. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that work isn't supposed to be everything. What would you do if you had more time off? I don't know. That's the problem. I've built my entire life around my job. I don't have hobbies. I don't have a relationship. I have my work, and I have hotel rooms in different cities. That's it. You have your team at General Dynamics. I barely see them. I'm always on assignment. And they're colleagues, not friends. We don't connect, not the way your team connects. I thought about Rodriguez and Chen and the others, about the dinners at Smokey's, the casual conversations, the way we looked out for each other. You could have that, if you wanted it, maybe, if I stayed in one place long enough. She pulled her feet out of the water, dried them on her socks. The quarterly contract thing Hendricks mentioned, that could be a start. Regular touch points with the same people, building relationships over time instead of always being transient. Is that what you want? I think so, but it's scary too. What if I get comfortable and stop being good at what I do? What if staying in one place makes me complacent? I laughed. You're asking the wrong person. I just spent a week learning that comfortable and complacent are real risks, but you're dealing with it, changing, trying to. Doesn't mean I have it figured out. We sat there for a while, listening to the water, watching light play on the limestone walls. Eventually, Martinez stood. Want to hike the rest of the trail? I saw a sign that said there's a waterfall. Yeah, let's go. We spent 3 hours at Hamilton Pool, hiking, exploring, sitting in the shade and talking about nothing important. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months, maybe years. And watching Martinez, seeing her laugh at a joke, seeing her climb over rocks with unself-conscious grace, seeing her take photos with her phone like a tourist instead of an engineer, I realized I'd never really seen her before. I'd seen her credentials, her skills, her professionalism, but not her, not Kaylee Martinez, the person who existed beyond the job title. On the drive back, she fell asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window. I drove carefully, avoiding rough patches in the road, keeping the music low. When we pulled up to her hotel, I didn't wake her right away. Just sat there, engine idling, looking at her peaceful face and thinking about how much had changed in a week. Finally, I touched her shoulder gently. Martinez, we're here. She woke up slowly, disoriented. Sorry, I didn't mean to fall asleep. It's fine. You needed it. Thank you for today, really. I didn't know how much I needed that. Any time. She got out, then leaned back in. Webb, what you said at the pool about work not being everything. You were right, about both of us. Maybe we can remind each other of that. If I come back for the quarterly visits, I'd like that. Good. Me too. She went inside. I drove home through the Sunday evening quiet, thinking about tomorrow when she'd leave, about the weeks until she'd come back, about the way it felt both too soon and exactly right to have spent a day doing nothing related to work with someone I'd almost written off as irrelevant. After Martinez leaves, Webb feels the weight of her absence, but also a sense of balance. Work remains important, just not everything. During the 3 months apart, they stay in touch preparing for the symposium, their conversations gradually shifting from professional to personal. Webb begins making quiet changes in his life, feeling lighter and more open. When Martinez returns as the primary consultant, their reunion feels easy but charged. Over dinner, they catch up, acknowledge their growth, and share an unspoken closeness. As the symposium approaches, Martinez admits her nerves about presenting, and Webb reassures her, just as she once helped him, that preparation, trust, and showing up will be enough. He reassures her that preparation, care, and simply showing up are what matter most. They admit they matter to each other, despite bad timing and logistics, and decide to explore what they're building together. The symposium is a success, strengthening both professional respect and personal connection. Over time, her consulting visits become regular, their bond deepens, and they grow, individually and as a team, learning humility, collaboration, and trust. Eventually, her role is restructured so she can stay closer. Their relationship becomes permanent, leading to marriage, shared work, and a life built on mutual respect. What began with a mistake and an underestimation turns into growth, partnership, and love. Proof that being wrong, when met with humility, can change everything.